What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 102 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about Star Wars: Dawn of the Jedi, Force Storm, Book 1. This is by John Ostrander and Jan Duursema, and this is a 5-issue miniseries telling us the origins of the Jedi Order and how they came to be. And this book is not very good, unfortunately. That is a shame because I am most of the time a huge fan of John Ostrander. I can only think of one time where I wasn't 100% feeling what he was doing in a story, but he has worked in the Star Wars universe before. If you'll recall, in January, I talked about Agent of the Empire, which was written by John Ostrander, and I really love that book, and I don't understand how he can do something like this, which is just really, really bad, and then do something like Agent of the Empire, which is really good. The big problem that I have with this, there's actually two problems with it. I'll talk about the big problem first, and that is this book breaks the rule of show, don't tell. That is something that my creative writing professor used to tell us a lot when I was in college, and basically the idea is if you are telling us about someone doing something, or you're telling us about a characteristic and you're not showing it to us, then you're doing it wrong. You need to show us this character acting in a certain way. Don't tell us that a character acts in a certain way. The first 8 pages of this book, there's no story. It's all just narration getting us caught up to the point where John Ostrander wants to begin his story. That is completely unacceptable. You do not start your comic book story with 8 pages of narration getting us caught up on this. If you want to give us backstory information, you do it through dialogue. You start your story with a character getting thrown into a conflict with the status quo about to be broken, and then if you feel the need to give us some backstory, you do it through dialogue later on. You don't give it to us in 8 clunky pages at the beginning of your book. Now, there are pictures in those 8 pages because this is a graphic novel, but those pictures feel kind of pointless because they're not working in conjunction with the narrations. In a comic book, and I shouldn't even have to say this, the pictures should work in conjunction with the words, and that's not happening in the first 8 pages of this book. And that's just the very beginning of this book, and then it starts there and it just kind of goes on. I don't really enjoy this book. My other big problem that I have with it is that it kind of reminds me of the prequels in that it tries to make things way too complicated. Instead of just having here's your good guys and here's your bad guys, here's why they're fighting each other, and then go, it's really complicated. There's a whole lot of minor sects and different factions going on, and it's just really difficult to keep up with, especially after you've just given us 8 pages of backstory information, and then there's all this other stuff that you didn't even tell us in the backstory, and we're having to keep up with all of that, in addition to how this planet formed and how the Jedi Order formed. And that's another thing. It's not spelled J-E-D-I, it's like J-E-D-A-I-I or something like that, because this is set many, many thousands of years before the events of the movies, because there's this one character here, he's telling these students how the Jedi Order formed, and then he says that it started 10,000 years before this story, and I have no idea how many thousands of years ago this takes place before the prequels or the original trilogy. But it kind of reminds me of how in the prequels, you've got the Sith and the Jedi, and then you've got the Republic, and then you've got the Trade Federation. You've got all these different organizations, and it's really confusing trying to keep up with, okay, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. What was really great about A New Hope is that you start off, here's the Empire, here's the Rebels. The Empire are bad because they're doing this, the Rebels are trying to fight against them, and go. That's your story. This gives us all these different families and different crime lord factions, and then you've got the Jedi, and then you've got this Dark Empire, which is not the same as the Empire from the movies, and then they've got Force Hounds. It's all really confusing, and I think it could have been a lot more simple than what it is. And that takes me back to another thing that my creative writing professor used to say, and that was keep it simple, stupid. You don't have to have all of these different organizations at work here. You could trim this down a little bit, streamline a little bit, keep it simple, stupid. And this book does not try to keep it simple. It goes way too complex. It's got all of this political stuff here, and that's another way that it kind of reminds me of the prequels. It's just not very good. When I imagine how the Jedi Order formed, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was definitely expecting a better story than what we got here. And that's unfortunate because I really do like John Ostrander most of the time, but this is just a dud. This is not a very good story. I have to say, if you are interested in reading this, go ahead if you must, but I don't recommend it. I got this at my library, so I didn't have to pay any money for it. If you can find it at your library, then go right ahead. I would not recommend that you buy this story. It's not very good. It's not very well written. The characters don't really come alive. They're all very one-dimensional. It's just not very good all around. I really can't find anything redeeming about this book, and that's a shame because I really wanted to like this. I really like what John Ostrander does most of the time, and this is just not working for me. So that's all that I have to say about this book. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.